Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Carrie. Yep, I can hear
Sarah.
you. Hi, I can hear you, Carrie.
Okay, good.
Thank
Is
you.
that perfect now?
Yep,
Okay,
it's okay.
great.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining. We're just giving folks a couple more minutes to get on, and then we will go ahead and thank you for being a part. And I'm excited. I see, Renee, you're joining us, and I know you jumped right in, and we're at SAFE this weekend. So thanks so much for being on today. And then looks like we've got some more folks joining. Tom Dewson, Tom Grant after his big Shine event this weekend. Welcome. Laura, hello. We'll give folks just a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. Thanks, everyone. Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just giving folks another minute or two to get on, then we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for joining us today. Okay, I have one more minute on my watch and then we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks, everyone, for joining our April Ambassador call. And we'll get started here shortly if you want to grab a glass of water, and then we'll go ahead and get started soon. Thanks. Okay, welcome everybody. I have the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started, and we will also be recording the call for anyone who maybe misses the beginning or needs to listen to it later. So welcome everybody. We're thrilled to have you as a part of our April Ambassador call. We have a lot of great updates to share. The photo you see on the screen here is actually from some of the devastation in Southern Africa caused by Cyclone Idai. And so the work you're doing out in your communities to represent our organization and to share our mission is going to allow these families who have suffered so much to have access to emergency shelter and other life-saving supplies that we can provide. And so from our entire team, we wanted to extend our thanks and really let you know what a difference you're making for families desperately in need. And we always talk about this, but at ShelterBox, we truly are preparing every day for disasters and pre-positioning aid so that we can be there for families when they need us most. And for families across Southern Africa, that day is today as they recover from the aftermath of the cyclone and as we have aid literally being shipped there now so that we can offer our support. So wanted to do a quick run through of the agenda. We have, this is our National Volunteer Week nationwide, and so we're really excited to be able to kick off this week with a call and to be able to thank you as our dedicated volunteers and ambassadors. We also have an update on the cyclone, and we really wanted to take a look at the different phases of our response and how that relates to this particular cyclone, as well as giving you an update that you can share with your community on where we currently are today. We also, as we always do, have some great ambassador shout outs and sharing the work that you've been so busy doing. We wanted to announce our Ambassador of the Month, and then we've got some updates to share as a part of our staff update, and we'll show you a look at our current deployments as well. And so we did want to start the call today, though, by having Carrie Murray, our president of ShelterBox USA, just join us. And I know she's really excited, as I am, to be able to thank this team for your ongoing effort. So, Carrie, I will turn it over to you. And I think you're muted at the moment, but if you just come off mute, we'll be able to hear you. Carrie, are you able to unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. So as Sarah mentioned, there's so much to discuss. Obviously, a big response that's taking shape down in Southern Africa for Cyclone Idai. But really, when I asked Sarah if I could participate in the call today, I couldn't think of a more important time to pause and really reflect and express gratitude to all of you on behalf of the entire ShelterBox team. Volunteers are an enormous part of the work of ShelterBox, and ShelterBox wouldn't exist without you. And as I often say, the volunteers at ShelterBox are truly the tie that binds the organization's ability to do its work. So this week is National Volunteer Week, and the theme for this week is celebrating service. And we feel like this is a great opportunity to really celebrate the impact of ShelterBox ambassadors and the volunteer service that all of you bring, which really at the end of the day is a massive force multiplier. And having this large ambassador team across the nation that is every single day of the week raising visibility and mobilizing the support that enables the work is tackling one of the biggest issues facing our world. And you may not see it in the news every day, but this massive displacement of people is really one of the largest issues, with 85 million people displaced in our world today. And that number is growing each and every year, and that's due to conflict and natural disasters. But the support that our ambassadors provide, what you do every day, truly transforms people's lives, and it gives families the ability to begin again, and it gives them the hope that they can get on with life again. And every single day, I know that no matter where you go across this nation, every day there are ambassadors that are lending their time, you're lending your talents, you're lending your voices and your passion and your enthusiasm. And that service is truly inspiring to all of us, and it's inspiring other people to take action. And that's the force multiplier. Every person that you're talking to is talking to people, and that is just the ripple effect of that is incredible. And when I really think about what the impact is, I'm so inspired because this is a movement that has been created and that all of you are this voice and this collective voice that together is really transforming people's lives all over the world, and people that you may never meet in your lifetime, but that you're providing the support that's enabling them to begin again. And it's truly inspiring. And on behalf of the entire ShelterBox team, we just want to say a big thank you to all of you for what you do each and every day. And this is a big week. We're going to be celebrating you and talking a lot about it on social media, but just a big thank you from the team.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carrie. And I just wanted to echo Carrie's thanks, and also thank each of you for also just being such a fun team. And we really very much feel like we're part of a huge community here. And so we're really grateful that you're a part of this movement. So thank you so much. So wanted to start with kind of the news of the day, which is our response to Cyclone Idai. And we go through in our training a lot around our decision to deploy and how we actually decide to respond, and also all of the different steps that go into a response. And so what we thought we could do today is actually walk you through our response and what it looks like in the various stages and how that's all unfolded with this particular storm. So in the typical stages of response, what we do at ShelterBox is we decide to respond using our response criteria. So those are some of the things like whether or not the government has requested international aid, if our equipment is something that can actually offer a benefit to that community. We look at things like the ability of that community to self-recover. And so those are all of the different criteria that we're looking at before we decide whether or not we're going to send a team. We also are committed to working with partners. So whether it's the local Rotary clubs on the ground or other organizations who are responding, we use as much information as we can by working in partnership with other groups and people to be able to identify the most vulnerable areas and the families who could use our support the most. We also do actual assessments and interviews with these families to ask what types of emergency shelter and essentials they might need to recover, in addition to observing the conditions and using our judgment to decide what are the proper tools within our toolbox that we can actually contribute. And then we deliver the aid items to the families who have been selected, to those who are the most vulnerable, and then we go back. So we return and we do a monitoring and evaluation trip so that we can speak with the families and gather their feedback and understand if the material that we gave them reached them in time and if they knew how to use it, so that we can constantly continue to improve in future responses. And so looking at that first step in terms of deciding to send a team, these were some of the factors that we looked at. So we knew that there was a massive cyclone on March 14th that had winds of over 100 miles per hour and heavy rains. Also, prior to the storm hitting land, there was significant downpours that were happening throughout much of this region. And so there had actually been severe flooding since March 4th. And so even 10 days prior to the cyclone's arrival, we saw significant flooding throughout the area, which came after a period of severe drought. And so because the land was so dry, the floodwaters built on top of it, making conditions worse. We also knew that lines of communications were cut as a result of the storm and that areas were heavily flooded. We tried to get a picture of the number of people that were affected, but it was continuing to emerge in those early days. But the UN stated that this could be the worst disaster of its kind to hit the Southern Hemisphere. And so those were some of the things we were looking at in deciding to actually send an assessment team. And so here you can see, buildings that have crumbled as a result of the cyclone and also some of the flooding that remains. We also looked at whether or not the government was inviting in extra help. So the government of Malawi put out a renewed call for international help, and they stated that at least 1 million people had been affected by the cyclone. One of the other things we look at is something called the Human Development Index, and this is a rating of every country in the world, and it looks at things like life expectancy, the annual revenue of the country. It looks at things like the healthcare systems that are in place. And Malawi, on that system and scale, is one of the poorest countries in the world. So they have a ranking of 170 out of 187 countries. And so when we're talking about our obligation to serve the most vulnerable, these are truly some of the most vulnerable people in the world. They had very little prior to the storm hitting and have even less today. And so again, we felt compelled to send a team because of that. We also look at our past response, and we've responded successfully to Malawi in the past, and so we knew we could call upon some of those past contacts and partners. We responded most recently to flooding there in 2015, and were able to help over 2,000 families at the time with emergency shelter. And so again, that led to us wanting to respond to this particular incident. Some of you may have seen on Facebook, Ishan Lai, who was with us last month talking about her deployment to the Philippines, shared a post saying that nearly 4 years ago exactly, she deployed to Malawi on behalf of ShelterBox to help with severe flooding, and that now it's happening again. And so in sending the team in, what we ask them to do first is to conduct assessment. So we have a team on the ground in Chikwawa, Malawi, and they're working to support families and do interviews. Some of the things that they've been seeing is that there are still high floodwaters, and there have also been multiple reports of cholera outbreaks. So we know that families are getting sick from the dirty water. We also know that there are tens of thousands of families with nowhere to call home. And so we are working with those local partners, as I described, so groups like Rotary International and Habitat for Humanity, and they're helping us with those assessments. So we make sure to sort of divide and conquer and to go out and figure out which areas need our help the most, and then to come back and compare notes so that we can do a really complete type of assessment. We also look at weather systems and see what else is coming on the horizon that might cause further damage or affect our response. And so in understanding some of the challenges that our group has encountered, in so many cases, roads are washed out, bridges are washed away. As I mentioned earlier, communications are down, and floodwaters are remaining high because of the significant amount of rain that's happened. And so should it rain again, there's always the threat of flash floods. We also have seen people who have lost their homes building temporary shelters, but it's using the very few materials that they can salvage. And so they're not very permanent structures that they're building, and in some cases they're not structurally sound. And so we know there's a definite need there for our training and also for the materials that we can supply. In the collective centers across Malawi, we also are seeing horrible conditions and that they're very crowded and cramped. And this is something we see after so many disasters. Typically, community members will flock to those buildings that are remaining standing. Oftentimes it's schools, since many of them are made from, stronger concrete or cement. And because families take shelter inside of those schools, the children have nowhere to go to study. And oftentimes there are more people than were intended to be in that building. And so it puts people at increased risk of disease, of violence, and sometimes even trafficking. And so we know that this emergency shelter is needed to get those families out of the schools and to give them their own places where they can begin to rebuild and also to recover and to have privacy and to come together as a family. Here you can see an example of one of those structures that I mentioned that, as you can see, has just truly been made from whatever materials could be collected from the surrounding area. And so we have made the decision to send aid. So as a result of those assessments, we know that some of the aid items that families need are our shelter kits. And as a reminder, these can be used to either repair a damaged structure or to create an entirely new structure if everything has been lost. And so in those cases, what we'll do is we'll procure items like lumber locally or anything that we can use as a framework, and then we'll use the tarps and the tools that are included in the shelter kit to train families in how to rebuild a new home. And so we've seen all kinds of creative uses for these kits and different types of buildings that are created as a result, but will help provide training in how to create the strongest structure possible for families to live in. We also will be providing water filters, since the spread of cholera and other disease is a concern, especially with so many standing flood waters. Oftentimes those systems back up into the sewage, and the drinking water and the sewage combine, and so there are sanitation issues, and so our water filters and carriers can help with that. And then also mosquito nets, since vector-borne disease also is a concern after these disasters. In floods in particular, we see a rapid rise in the number of mosquitoes, and so diseases that can be spread through mosquitoes like Zika virus or malaria become an additional threat. And so those are some of the items we've decided to send. So then looking at our shipping and logistics, we're part of the logistics sector and the shelter sector. And so just what that means is we work with other humanitarian agencies on the ground so that we can coordinate our efforts. And as a result of this, our aid arrived on planes into country this past weekend, but the World Food Program, who's part of that same cluster, operates there locally. And so they've been able to offer us trucks that we can use, and also to store our equipment there locally because of what they have in country. And so working with these partners is really invaluable in our response. So we had our first shipment of aid land in Malawi on Saturday. It's a 2-day journey through the flood affected lands to actually reach the communities that we've decided are the most in need of our support. And so that's literally what's happening as we speak, is that our aid is being trucked into those locations so that we can get it into the hands of the families who need it the most. Just to show you a quick diagram after a disaster, so that there's not a duplication of efforts, or so there aren't communities who go unserved, the UN has formed what they call clusters. And really, these are just groups of organizations who meet in country and are there on the ground after a disaster happens so they can coordinate efforts. And as you'll see, there's a nutrition cluster, there's a health cluster, there's an emergency telecommunication cluster, and ShelterBox is part of the shelter cluster, so this emergency shelter section. And we're actually one of 3 organizations who's been trained by the UN and can actually lead the cluster. And what this group does is we all come together to make sure that we're working in coordination with one another, not only within the arena of shelter, but also with all of the other groups who are responding. So we know it's absolutely critical to have a space for shelter, but with that, we know there's a need for sanitation and clean water. There's also a need for security. And so we want to make sure that all of those pieces are in place as well. And that's what we do through our partnerships. So another quick couple of pieces to mention. We are working very closely with our partners at Rotary International. So we've been in close contact with the district governor in 2 of the different districts down there. So the district governor who covers the area that includes Malawi, Mozambique, and also Zimbabwe. And we're also working with our partners, Habitat for Humanity, who have a team on the ground there as well. We are meeting with past district governors in addition to current district governors, and also with the Rotary clubs who are there locally and also who assisted us when we responded back in 2015. And so we continue to work with those partners. So how do our ambassadors help us sort of during the different phases of these disasters? So we do, prior to a disaster happening, something called surge planning. So we know that we want to have plans in place so that when a disaster strikes, we can respond quickly. And so some of the things our team does is we work on messaging that we'd like to share if a disaster happens, and we kind of outline all of the steps that we should take if something does occur. So when a disaster strikes, we go through all of those different phases of assessment and active deployment and monitoring and evaluation that I just sort of walked you through. But within that, there are also different trigger points in this timeline of when we activate as a team. And so the emails that you'll receive from Cherie and I that talk about, now is a great time to reach out to your local district governors or to your club presidents and let them know what's happening. That's something that we might do at the point where we decide to send an assessment team, because we want to make sure we're actually going to respond to that particular disaster before we go out and ask for support. Another thing that we do is, in certain instances, if we can tell it's going to be a very large scale response, we might create a restricted fund, as we have in this particular disaster. And so you might receive another email at that point that lets you know that a restricted fund has been created and that people can donate, particularly to help the victims of the cyclone in Africa. And so those are some of the different points along this spectrum where we trigger different activities to happen. And so that's why you'll get emails from us saying, hey, this is a good idea now. Why don't you try that? And we'll send scripts and different examples of PowerPoints that you can use. And so at this point, where we are is just getting the message out to as many people as possible. We know this is going to be probably a long-term response given the massive number of people displaced. And so we can use all the help we can get at this point. And so we're continuing to communicate new information as we get it to Rotary District governors, but you doing that follow-up with those in your area is what really makes such an incredible difference for our organization. So I will pause there for a moment, and I just wanted to see if there are any questions so far. So we had, who are the two other organizations in the shelter cluster? Great question. So the two other organizations who can lead the shelter cluster are the UN and then also the International Federation of the Red Cross, and they're both our partners. We're the third agency that's been trained to be able to lead the cluster, but then there are many other members who participate in the shelter cluster. So Habitat for Humanity and the Red Cross, other groups who respond in the area of shelter are who else would be on that list. But yes, it's a very good group to be a part of, and it's really a vote of confidence that our organization has been chosen to take part in it at the level that we have. Okay, seeing no more questions for the moment, I wanted to just really thank and recognize our incredible top 10 fundraisers for the month of March. And so thank you to Jim Carrier in the lead there. Jim is our past board chair, and he is having right there at his heels Mark Midyett, who's our current board chair. And so exciting to see both of them taking such an active role in continuing to fundraise. Bruce Heller out of Texas is an SRT and ambassador who's in third place. Peggy and Malcolm Carlaw out of Oregon. Tom and Marie Grant from Pennsylvania. We have Mary Sloan and Jeff Lichty from Michigan. Greg Krauska from Minnesota. Don Jorgensen from Arizona. Brian Glenn from Texas, and then Larry Pallant from New York. Thank you so much for all of your outstanding contributions, and to everybody who's continuing to raise money on our behalf. One of the ways that Jim was able to bring in so much during the month of March is he has a great event every January called Jambalaya, where he creates a huge pot of jambalaya and shares it with friends, and they do a live and silent auction, and that event has just grown from year to year. And so if you're looking for some inspiration, Jim's got a great model down that is worth repeating. So at this point, we wanted to just pause and recognize and thank Bill Woodard. Bill's been a longtime volunteer for ShelterBox. He started off as an SRT, and so he was on our ShelterBox response team and went on 10 different deployments for us, including to Malawi in 2015. But he was also an incredibly dedicated ambassador and board member, and a year ago chaired our ambassador council. And Bill's decided to retire as a volunteer. He retired from his professional career about 6 or 7 years ago, but is going to take some time and do some traveling. And we just wanted to thank Bill. He's made such an incredible impact on our program, and I know so many of you know him and have worked with him. So if you wanted to send him a note of thanks, please do. But he will be very missed and leave some big shoes to fill. So I know he served as a mentor and friend to so many of us. So wanted to thank and recognize Bill for his hard work. We also then wanted to jump into our ambassador shout outs. And so we have had a great group of volunteers the past couple months, which we've shown you, but their work has continued. So PET stands for President-Elect Training Seminar. And this is where Rotarian presidents go to be trained before taking over the helm of their club the following year. And so it's a great chance for us as ShelterBox volunteers to get in front of a large group of Rotarian leaders at once. And so we had Greg Krauska representing at his Pets with a little model of a shelter kit that he had created. Jack and Nancy Fadigan represented us at the Empire State Pets, and you can see them there on the right, or Nancy at least, with the incoming Rotary International President, Mark Maloney. So we had some really great representation over the past month at these Pets events. We also had the Mid-Northeast Pets with a huge group of our awesome volunteers. So Louis Turpin, Larry Pallant, Jenny Hinsman, Roland Weimer, and also Paul Daniels were there representing ShelterBox with that dynamic team, but multiple districts came together for that event, and so it was great to have so many volunteers helping answer questions and give information. We also had Tom and Marie Grant, who helped with the District 7305 Pets, and then Wes Clanton, an ambassador from Tennessee, represented us at the Mid-South Pets. And so thank you for those of you who were able to take the time out of an entire weekend and to represent us at these important events across the country. We also have seen great success from our ambassadors who are just continuing to go out and share about our mission and to spread the word. This is Steve Savrin from Massachusetts, and there was a local sailing race in this community, and an individual donor and sponsor of that event decided to give $1,000 to ShelterBox, and then their local Rotary Club matched that donation. And so Steve was able to raise $2,000 through this special event that took place and some of the proceeds from it. We also had Tom and Marie Grant representing us at the Shamrock Shuffle, which is a fun community event that happens in their area. And so it's a great reminder that, Rotary is a terrific partner, but there's also other ways to get the word out within your community. So if you know of community events where, there's going to be any type of gathering of people, it's a great opportunity to set up a tent and to start a conversation and to talk about our organization. Similarly, in looking for different ways to get our mission and our message out, Jack and Nancy Fadigan are longtime ambassadors who also own a nursery. And so inside of their nursery and their business, they have a special ShelterBox corner that's set up. So sometimes of the year, they'll actually have a whole ShelterBox tent set up inside their store, but other times they'll have a display. And so as you can see here, they've updated their display to have some information about the cyclone. They printed off information of what ShelterBox is doing to help, along with a newspaper article talking about how 1,000 people are feared dead, and they set all of that up with the donation box. And so just making our work visible in your community is something that can go such a long way. And Jack and Nancy have been doing this for years and are in our Hall of Fame. They've raised over $100,000 for the organization just by helping spread the word in this unique way. So just something else to think about and that could be easily replicated. We also wanted to thank Rich Young, who's a new ambassador, and this was his very first time setting up a tent. And so congratulations to Rich in Maine, who did an awesome job there. Mark Midyett, who I mentioned as our #2 fundraiser for March, had a really busy day this month where he set up the tent for a middle school group and ran over to a Rotary lunch to accept a $10,000 check, and then ran back to the school that afternoon to run a different class of the students through a ShelterBox demonstration. And so it was a busy, but he said important day because it paid off in the end. So both sharing our message with youth and then also being able to collect donations for the organization. We really appreciate that Mark finds time to do this in addition to serving as our board chair this year. So thank you, Mark. Also wanted to shout out to Laura Helmer, who was able to successfully re-engage a club who hadn't participated with us in a while. And Laura, I see you're on today. Is there anything you want to share? Laura, can you hear me?
I'm sorry. I'm here, but something happened. I guess my husband's working on my car and he affected my ability to hear you. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We just wanted to thank you for your recent work, I think, with the Westland Rotary Club. Anything you wanted to share about your visit with them?
Well, the Westland Rotary Club has an interesting audience. A past district governor, one of whom is, Tom Marcos, is on a committee for ShelterBox with interacting with Rotary International. And then this guy is on another man, Jim Boyer, is on the list to become the district governor in about 3 years. And so it was a great audience to enthuse both members and future leaders. I was really happy to be there.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, it looks like it was a great meeting. And thanks for helping spread the word. And then it looked like the high school there did something as well.
They're in the process, not in Westland, but where my Rotary Club is in White Salmon Binge in Washington. The high school kids had me and some other nonprofits come in, and they decided to select this year's fundraiser as ShelterBox. They're in the process after spring break of engaging restaurants to donate part of their proceeds in a singular evening to ShelterBox, and we've given them flyers so that the restaurants will all be able to promote ShelterBox and donations.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's really exciting. Thank you, Laura. We had some high schools recently in Michigan come together and decide ShelterBox was the charity of choice, and they've sent in $14,000 in donations so far. So it's incredible what the students can do when they put their mind to it. So perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, great. And then we wanted to thank and recognize Frank. I know Frank's usually on the call, but I don't think he was able to make it today. Frank had an equally busy trip similar to the one Mark Vignette was doing, but Frank has done a lot of road shows. He's able to take a couple days here and there and visit clubs sort of off the beaten path or ones that haven't had a ShelterBox visit in a long time, which has been really awesome in building momentum in his district. And so on one of these road trips alone, Frank was able to collect some different checks. So $2,000 from the Vidalia Rotary Club, $1,000 from Reedsville, $1,000 from Glenville, $2,000 from Hinesville, and then a Hero Club commitment for $1,000 for a Bronze Hero Club. So he was teasing that he cleaned up that week, but thank you to Frank for his outstanding dedication, and also to those Rotary clubs who continue to support the work that we do. It's just awesome. We've also had some great ShelterBox exposure, and so Peggy Carlaw shared on the left, her district actually added this call to action around helping families hit by the cyclone in their district newsletter. And so if that's something you're ever wanting to do, we provide all of the wording and photographs and everything. If you either want to share information with your local Rotary district in your newsletter, or with your club newsletter, or even with your local media. And so we had that happen with Amanda Ayer in the Sarasota area. She shared about the work that we're doing in the local paper, the Herald Tribune, and they ran a nice article about our work. And so on the ambassador portal, we have lots of different resources and also press releases that you can customize and use. So please know that those are there. We also got some great exposure on Charity Navigator's website, and we're recommended as one of the most highly rated charities for those who are providing support to the victims of the cyclone. And so that's a great article to share, since so many people recognize the Charity Navigator name and give to those who are highly rated because they know that those are trustworthy organizations. And so as a reminder, we have 4 stars from Charity Navigator, which is the highest rating you can receive, and we are featured on their current page describing the cyclone. At this point, we also wanted to thank and give a huge shout out for an event that took place just last weekend, a couple days ago. So John Marshall and also Tom and Marie Grant worked together again to produce the second annual Shine for ShelterBox event in Pennsylvania. And they do a beautiful job of combining a nice cocktail reception with a dinner. They have silent and live auction items, and they have a tent set up, and they also lay out all of the different aid items so that community members can interact with our organization and understand a little bit more about what it is that we do. And I know that, John, you're on the phone with us. Anything you want to give as an update from this weekend's event?
I have a hard time today talking. I go into the hospital tomorrow for a heart cath, but it was a very nice event. Tom and Marie did a lot of hard work, and my staff from my business did a lot of work, along with Kathleen Cochran from the Zillion Opal Club.
Oh, great. Thank you, John. We'll be keeping you in our thoughts tomorrow, and so excited to hear it was a great event. There are many more photos from the event on the Facebook page that Tom and Marie were able to share, and I think Tom just had trouble getting on the call today, but we know that all of you worked so hard to put this great event together for the second year in a row, so thank you, and we really appreciate all the hard work that went into that, a great event. Perfect. And then we wanted to announce that we had another big weekend this past weekend with the, I don't know how many years it's been, but this year's installment of ShelterBox Ambassador Field Experience, where our participants were transported to the land of Fredonia and asked to serve as ShelterBox response team members, helping decide where the aid should go and which families were most in need. And I know we have some of the participants of that event on the phone with us today. And so if I could put you on the spot, Dean, I just wanted to see if you had any reports back or to see if you wanted to share anything you learned this last weekend. Dean Caldwell, can you hear me okay? Sorry, I think some of our folks might not have microphones hooked up to their computer. I know Renee is in that boat too, but he said one of the things he got at SAFE was laryngitis, so he's not able to share. But I know they had an awesome weekend and were able to learn more about how to share about the ShelterBox mission and to carry it forward. Carrie Baptista, I know you're on the line with us. Anything you wanted to share from this weekend?
I am on the line. I had the best experience at SAFE. As a staff member, I learned so much about ShelterBox, and just having access to the ShelterBox response team members was huge for me to get that personal experience. And then also getting to meet all of our wonderful ambassadors that participated. It's truly incredible to see the passion and the drive that our ambassadors have for the mission of ShelterBox. And so I just can't say thank you enough. I know it's National Volunteer Week, and I just can't say thank you enough from the whole team and from the organization. We would not be able to do what we do without your help. So we appreciate it, and thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. And then Greg, I know you were there, not as a participant, but helping to run the event this year. Anything you wanted to share from your SAFE experience?
Yeah, I'm at the airport, so I got a little background noise here, gang. But yeah, I just wanted to say we had some amazing experiences. We had a fabulous group of volunteers who came through. And as always, the volunteers who do everything from logistics to cooking to being actors and all the rest just did a fantastic job. On a personal note, I also got to bring my daughter Eli along, and she's there laying in the front of that picture. She was one of the cast members, and actually, well, you'll have to come to Fredonia to learn more about what actually happened there. I'm also here with a couple of other volunteers as we sit in the airport waiting for our planes. Why don't you say hi, guys?
Hi, guys. It's Ned Morris. It's
Hi,
Eric
Ned.
Ricey, a.k.a. Silverback.
Hi, Eric.
Some of us earned ranch names this week.
Good. Well, thank you so much for being there. And yeah, we really appreciate all the volunteers who both take the time to attend and put all of their energy into it, and also those who make it possible to host every year by showing up and serving as actors and helping cook and all of the rest. So thank you all. We appreciate your support.
Drop it.
Oh, sorry about that. I think I got onto mute by accident. So sorry. I wanted to thank everybody who participated in SAFE. So both those who went as participants and gave all of their energy and put so much effort into learning and being a part of the experience, and then also for the volunteers who were those who showed up and played different roles and prepared the food and really made this event possible. We couldn't do it without any of your support, so thank you. At this point, we wanted to thank and acknowledge our Ambassador of the Month. So Rich Young started as an ambassador at the end of last year, and then he went and collected some materials and gear from a retired ambassador in the area and found that his tent had poles whose bungees had snapped. And so he spent some of his early days as an ambassador learning to rethread the tent poles and putting the tent up for the first time ever, but he did it successfully, and he's very much hit the ground running and has been sharing ShelterBox out in his community ever since. And so for his dedication and also really perseverance just from the start and willingness to share our mission and message, we wanted to thank Rich for his awesome effort. So thank you. At this time, we wanted to announce the ShelterBox Spring Challenge. So this is something that we did last year, but I know we've got some new ambassadors on the phone. And really what this is just a way to thank and reward our ambassadors who are going out there and doing the work for us every single month that really propels our mission forward. And so the idea of the Spring Challenge is that for each of the next 3 months, so this spring, that you'll go out and give a presentation at least once a month to a group who might not know about ShelterBox, or maybe a group who has not been involved for a while. This could be a Rotary Club, it could be a school, as we saw earlier, it could be a church group, it could be a business. You know, going in and doing a lunch and learn and sharing with employees about our work is another way to approach it. But essentially, we're just really wanting to be able to share our mission and to grow some green for spring and get some donations going. And so if you complete one activity each month between now and the end of the challenge, which is June 30th, we send out prizes. And so this year's prize is a specially customized USB drive for ShelterBox. And it's so that you can put your presentation onto there and be able to take it with you to meetings and have an easy way to transfer the information back and forth as you're going on your very busy visits. And then we have a grand prize for the person who's able to do the most during the spring challenge, and they get a $25 credit at our ShelterBox store to pick an item of their choosing. And so we had some great participation last year during the spring challenge and had a lot of fun too, and we're excited to be able to announce it again this year. And so if you do have time, please join the spring challenge. You can register your activities on the ambassador portal with an activity report so that we can track it. And also Cherie has really up-to-date information about which clubs for Rotary have given recently, or which might have given in the past but haven't had a visit in a while. And so if you do need that type of information for your area, please reach out to her and she would be happy to provide it. I wanted to share with you all about a new program that we're really excited about, and also about the person who inspired it. And so Brian Fox is a realtor who learned about ShelterBox from living near to our California office. He's a realtor in Southern California, and he decided that he wanted to do something in his business to be able to help people who were affected by disaster. And so what Brian started doing last year is he started to donate the cost of a ShelterBox tent every time he sold a home. And he's been able to sort of advertise his commitment to his clients as a way to deepen the relationship and to let them know that something good is coming of their home sale. In addition to just getting a new home for themselves, they're also providing a home to a family in need. And so Brian shared with us that that he's pioneering this program, but that it's very easily obtainable, that you can easily show the impact, and that it's an easy model to recreate. He said the need for shelter is a constant problem that we can attack on an ongoing basis. And so by setting up this program, he's done just that, and he's been able to give back every single month something in service of our mission. And so just in the past year of having started this program, Brian has been able to fund 15 different homes for families who were in need of our support. And so my just request to you today is, if you know any realtors in your community or within Rotary clubs that you're talking to and they want to learn more about the program, we're just now kicking it off and wanting to spread the word. We've got a great website set up on our page, which is shelterboxusa.org/giveahome, with lots of information about the program itself and what it means to be a part of it. There's a sign-up form in case a realtor would like more information or to join the program. And we know from various studies that have been done that 87% of consumers said that they're more willing to buy a product or service based on a company's advocacy concerning a social matter. And so I know that Brian in this past year has found that it's been a real win-win, in that he gets to do something good that helps our larger global community, but also our his customers very much appreciate the contribution he's making towards our mission. So we wanted to just let you know about this program. We'll be sending out some more information in our ambassador newsletter that goes out this month, and there will be additional resources on the portal too. But if you wanted to have a quick look, again, shelterboxusa.org/giveahome has all of that information, and it's a really easy way for realtors in your community to give back. One of the other quick things I wanted to mention is that there are smaller regional associations of realtors who meet. So the same way a chamber of commerce comes together or a Rotary club, there are groups of realtors who gather together to do meetings. And so another place to look as you're fulfilling your spring challenge might be with some different realtors associations in your area, to go and give a talk and to introduce them to ShelterBox and to this program and to invite them to be a part of it. Okay, and then I just wanted to share information with you. So since so many of you go out and present to Rotary clubs each month, what we wanted to do is to let you know that the Rotary Foundation, so the fundraising arm and the foundation arm of Rotary International, has created a new disaster fund. And essentially what it means is that people can donate to the Rotary International Foundation, and then assuming there's enough money set aside in the fund, different districts or clubs can apply for grants of up to $25,000 after a disaster hits. And so I know that Rotary is still working to develop some of the terms and conditions and the application process for this particular fund, but in case you get any questions about it or someone at your club is mentioning it, we just wanted you to know what exactly it was. And Rotary International is still going to continue to promote the work that ShelterBox is doing and what we're doing in partnership, but they'll also be promoting that people can donate to their disaster fund as well. And, you know, this is a good thing in that we absolutely need as much help as we can get when these disasters strike. There are so many families we see who are affected, and oftentimes the Rotarians on the ground are doing work that's complementary to what ShelterBox is focused on. So while we're in there during the emergency shelter phase, oftentimes Rotarians are then helping with the rebuilding that happens directly after that. And we saw a great example of this in the Philippines this past year, when after multiple typhoons had been through this particular area, we helped by providing tents and emergency shelter, and then Rotary came in and built what they called the Rotary Village Project, and were able to build more permanent structures for the families to live in. And so I imagine there will be more information as Rotary kind of sorts out all of the details of this fund, but again, just wanted to make you aware. So some of our messaging, again, we'll be sharing this on the portal and in our next ambassador newsletter, but we really just want to emphasize we are still very much Rotary's project partner in disaster relief, that we've been specializing in emergency shelter for nearly 2 decades. And so we absolutely know what works. And we know that by pre-positioning aid around the world, we're able to respond rapidly, and that we can really make an impact during that emergency phase of the disaster. I imagine that just through my work with other Rotary grants, it does take a while to develop a proposal and to receive funding. And so I do think we're going to occupy a niche space where we can respond quickly and be able to have equipment on the ground, maybe in that interim time as these local Rotary districts and clubs are waiting for maybe some of these disaster funds to come in. Also, we know that there is a massive need, and that we need all different types of support helping people after these disasters. And so we need what ShelterBox does as well as what Rotary does. We also have a qualified operations team, and that we're experienced working with local communities. And also, we really are focusing on the most vulnerable, and we're going hard to reach those communities that would otherwise be overlooked. And so I think that's something that makes us different from other organizations and really sets us apart. And then also, we really do have expertise in the field of shelter provision, and we go through all of those different phases of assessments, training, monitoring, and evaluation that are really the global best practice in the humanitarian aid world. So we know that what we're doing is actually making a difference for the families that we serve. So sorry, I know there's some text-heavy slides in this presentation, but we wanted to make sure that if you guys wanted to go back and look at it or check some of the slides for information, you could have it. So we'll be sharing these slides in the recording as we always do, but wanted to share that information with you. And Bill, I saw you were able to join us. Anything you wanted to share on this, Bill Tobin? And you may be muted on your end. Bill was also headed back from SAFE, and I think maybe in an airport as well. So we'll have Bill chip in next time if he has any new information to add. So looking at our, oh, yep, go ahead, Bill.
Hi. Yeah, no, I think that's about all we know right now. My personal belief is, $25,000 doesn't make much of a dent in any disaster area. So that's another thing that should somewhat be pointed out here, that will help somewhat, but in the type of work that ShelterBox does, that's we wouldn't be able to go help somewhere on a $25,000 budget. So just keep that in mind, that these are little amounts of money when it comes to a disaster.
Thank you, Bill, and thanks for being a part of SAFE this past weekend. Have a safe trip home. Okay, so wanted to just take a quick look in some of the few minutes we have left at our current deployments. So one of the things that happened in the last month since we talked is we had the 8th anniversary of the start of the war in Syria. And so just to offer a quick summary, ShelterBox has been operating in Syria since 2012, and we've helped over 50,000 families in that area with emergency shelter and supplies. When we talk about the continuing evolution of our aid, a lot of what we've given might look a little bit different than the standard ShelterBox that we used to provide, because we were really working to respond in particular to families who had been displaced by war. It's a very cold weather climate there in the winter, and so we provided, in some cases, Flex 3 tents that had special layers of insulation and could be set up outside in the cold, and which contain a stove that can vent to the outside. We've offered winterized kits that have some of our standard shelter items, but then also have things like blankets and thicker ground mats and mattresses, as well as hats and gloves and scarves for the parents and the children. And as we continue to serve there still are many families who are in need, and we've worked with families who have been displaced 10 different times in the last 6 years. And so having this shelter and to set up a place to call home is something that's really important and has made a huge difference. So we're continuing to operate in Syria. We're also working in Somaliland, where we have been for close to a year now, helping families after a long-term drought took place there and much of their livestock was killed off. So we continue to assist in Somaliland and also in the neighboring country of Ethiopia, where families have been displaced by conflict. We continue to operate in the Lake Chad Basin, so the country surrounding Nigeria, where families have fled Boko Haram violence. So we're working still in Niger, in Nigeria, in Cameroon, and also now the Republic of Congo. And we also have that team on the ground in Malawi, as we mentioned earlier, responding to the cyclone Idai that hit there last month. Wanted to give a quick reminder that you can visit shelterboxusa.org/news to see where we are at any point in time. So if you just go on our website, we have great little updates of all of the places we're currently operating. So if you need to brush up quickly before a meeting or a presentation, you can find that information there. Or every Tuesday, it ends up being morning here in the US, there's a Facebook Live update that our team in the UK does, where they really share about all of the places we've been operating and what types of aid we've been able to provide. And so that's another opportunity. We share that on our ambassador Facebook page as well. But that's another resource if you would like the most up-to-date information on where we're responding. And then wanted to also share, I know many of you know this, but we feel like it's good to do a reminder from time to time. But if you do order things from Amazon, they have a program called Amazon Smile, and you can select a charity of choice. And so a portion of the proceeds from your order will go to the charity of your choosing. And so ShelterBox USA is and has been for a long time one of the drop-down options that you can select. And so you can, through just doing your regular online shopping, support our organization. And so if you just type in Amazon Smile, it lets you search for a charity. And again, ShelterBox USA is among those listed. So just wanted to share that quick reminder in case it's something that you wanted to take advantage of. Okay, so I know we're nearing the end of our time. We wanted to wrap up the call as we always do by extending our heartfelt thank you to our ambassador team. We really could not do our mission without the support that you provide and the mouthpiece in your communities. It's how so many people learn about this organization. When people go to our website and make a donation, there's a question about how you learned about ShelterBox, and the majority of the time it's from an ambassador or from having been to a Rotary meeting or heard one of our presentations, and that's because of the work you all are doing out there each day tirelessly. So thank you. If you do have any questions that haven't yet been answered, there's a little box on the right that you can type into, and I would be happy to stay on and answer any questions you might have, or feel free to call or shoot me an email afterwards, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Since we have 1 minute left, I'll put in one more quick plug. ShelterBox is going to have a booth again this year at the House of Friendship at Rotary International's convention. This year it happens to be taking place in Hamburg. So if you have any Rotarians from your area, or if you yourself plan on attending, we would love to see you there or meet you for dinner or hang out with you at our booth. So we'll be, again, sending more information out about it. But wanted to just start getting the word out that we will have some ShelterBox equipment set up there in Hamburg, and look forward to being able to share with many Rotarians during that annual event as well. So thank you, everybody. I wish everybody a happy spring, and we look forward to talking to you again next month. Thanks and have a great day. Bye-bye.